Yo, Puff, man. Can't believe this is like, wow, straight out the art of war, Victory is only by surprise. There are only two types of attack in the art of war: the direct, orthodox attack and the unorthodox surprise attack. But of these two, only one will lead to victory, and that's the unorthodox surprise attack. This is why Sun Tzu says, those skilled at the unorthodox are as infinite as heaven and earth. They fly in the highest heights of the sky, and they go deep beneath the earth where no one can find them. Be as mysterious as the dark, as immovable as mountains. Puffy seemed immovable. P-Diddy, Sean John. This is a man who amazed me more than any other producer at his time. I studied all of them, from Babyface to Terry and Jimmy, Teddy Riley. And you got these new guys, Mike Will made it, DJ Mustard, DJ Khaled. But the only person I can think that came close to doing what Puffy did before him was Berry Gordy. Now, I don't know if Berry Gordy played an instrument. I can't remember. I read books about him and Diana Ross and all of that, and I just don't remember. I believe he had a little knowledge, but basically he was hands-off, much like Puffy, running a whole business, much like Puffy, and deep into the publishing and royalties and how he's going to distribute that, and that they both were similar in that way. So they were like generals of their company. Now, Sun Tzu says, treat the soldiers well, take care of them, mix your colors with theirs. The general makes sure that the old are fed and everyone is warm and clothed before he or she, the general, eats and gets warm and so forth. Berry Gordy seemed to do that, although I've heard a couple things, but I don't hear a lot. Puffy, on the other hand, has been a little different. But I remember admiring this man, like, who is he? Like, I wanted to see his face, like the beginning of Mozart movie. Like, how is this? This guy's so powerful. He keeps putting out these hot tracks, and it's so different and so ahead of its time. And even though he was sampling a lot, he did it so well, it didn't matter. And at that time, I believe he was as hard to know as the dark. He was the most powerful when no one knew what he looked like or who he was, and he was producing all these people, and they were, I don't know if it was a lot at this time yet. I know it was Biggie. So what is the lesson to be learned from this? And there's always a lesson when you can look back at tragedies. In Thomas Cleary's translation, the introduction says that the greed and possessiveness are the underlying causes of all aggression. And Sun Tzu stresses throughout the whole book how aggression, being aggressive, is the worst thing you could do. He says it's not necessarily beneficial to have more strength, only to avoid acting aggressive. That's always necessarily beneficial, to avoid acting aggressive. I've heard some things allegedly about, some of the bad boy artists not getting paid right, or maybe set on shelves, or people who were newly hired and set on shelves, and a lot of stories flying around there. For a guy who's barely yet an icon because he's still working. It's probably not a good strategy to let your love life get all out into the public because people run wild with it. That's one of the prices you have to pay. If you don't know the advantages of anything, like Sun Tzu says in The Art of War, and you can't be thoroughly aware. If you aren't aware of the disadvantages, you can't be thoroughly aware of the advantages. He says if you just flippantly go through life without strategy, then eventually you'll become captive. Now, this is straight from The Art of War. Remember, we're dealing with the physics and the politics and the psychology of conflict. The Art of War is about strategy and dealing with disharmony. But the key is to see disharmony before it forms and to either avoid it or dismantle it before it can get to you, or you go around it. And so when you achieve this, when you solve problems before they form, no one's going to call you clever. When you achieve victory and there's no battle, no one's going to call you brave. I know there must be a lot of stress having all types of power and money and fame and all these people talking about you at the same time. I mean, it just seemed like Puffy, P-Diddy, P-Daddy, he seemed like he wanted the fame. You know, he started jumping in all the videos and all that, and then he's just everywhere. You know, he got in the movies too, but it seemed like that. So it seemed like he got what he wanted, and it seemed like he was happy. But then it seemed like there was a byproduct of that was that people investigate you. So like, even if you're known as a bad boy, there are certain things you're not supposed to do. The Art of War says there are some battles not to be fought, some routes not to be followed, some rules not to be followed. The key is to be able to go along with things as they already are. That's adapting to the opponent or whatever it is. There might not necessarily be an enemy or an opponent. It might be a friendly match or competition. But anyway, whatever the level of disharmony is, the idea is that you're going to let them do. You see what they're doing. They don't know what you've got in your head, and you're going to adapt to what they're doing so that their plan becomes their trap, so to speak. So the Art of War says that each pound you feed off the enemy is worth 20 pounds you provide by yourself. But one of the 5 ways of knowing who will win is knowing when to fight and when not to fight. An army is like a fire. If you don't put it out, Sun Tzu says, it'll burn itself out. True story, when I was at Howard, I was at an event, a talent show I was in, and he was there as well. Of course, I didn't know who he was at that time, nor do I remember seeing him, which I might not have, or I might have, but I was told later that he was there, which is interesting. So I guess I'll leave off with caught up terrain. That is terrain where when you go forth and you are not prepared and the enemy begins to prevail to your disadvantage, you might have a hard time getting back to your disadvantage. And you might not get back. And even if you do, there might not be anything there to come back to. I'm Austin Christian with The Art of War Made Easy. Listen up for the next podcast. This is my new thing right now because time is of the essence. Y'all know it's crazy and hard out here. Be safe, and we'll see you soon.